Hi, I'm Shelby. I have my own YouTube channel called Shelby Artist. And today I'm guest hosting and playing the voice of Allison of DIY Salvation for this presentation on TROM Level 1. TROM stands for the Resolution of the Mind, a self-studied, self-applied method of resolving your mental and spiritual condition researched and developed by Dennis Stevens. Many people who first learn of TROM get the idea that they need to study the entire subject before even starting to do the exercises. Some end up reading the book and listening to all the lectures, endlessly theorizing about it and talking about it with others, and never get around to even doing Level 1. They think it's all too difficult, despite our efforts here to make TROM accessible to the masses by clarifying nearly every last word of it. I used to scratch my head and wonder about this. I worried that maybe we hadn't done our jobs well enough. But considering the lengths we've gone to simplify this subject, I can't believe that's the real reason anymore. I have a better theory nowadays, and a simpler explanation that can lead to handling this fundamental problem early TROM practitioners have in getting started. Throughout man's history, the mind has lingered about as an unsolvable problem, a specialized category of study that only the most brilliant and the most educated can undertake. It's widely believed that if you are having problems with your mind, you need to see a psychologist or psychiatrist. Even in the subject of Scientology, a study that claims to eliminate the need for psychotherapists, L. Ron Hubbard warns that the mind cannot be fully handled by one's self, and one needs to see a practitioner at a Scientology organization to resolve it. So even then, all that's changed is instead of going to a medical office to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, one goes to a church to see another type of trained professional who has his own theories about how the mind works and insists you need his help in order to handle it. Therefore, when Dennis Stevens made a claim that he discovered a way to resolve the mind working by one's self, I am sure there were many who did not believe him, psychologists, psychiatrists, and Scientologists alike. And those who do believe him still think that they need to be an expert at TROM first before beginning this task. Also, there is the concern that there are going to be a minority of people that aren't in good enough mental shape to attempt such a feat as resolving their mind on their own. Now that is true. There is a small portion of the population that simply aren't up to the task. And that is why Dennis developed the exercises described in the chapter on Level 1 in his book, The Resolution of the Mind, a Game's Manual. The exercises are a test to see if one can go on to Level 2 without seeing a separate therapist. In this presentation, I am not only going to tell you how to perform the first exercises, but also some of the theory behind them and the reason why you need to do them before going on to Level 2. By the time you finish, you will know exactly what to do. No need to study the entire subject just to do Level 1. 15 minutes is a small investment of your time to learn a technique that begins the greatest adventure you will ever have, the resolution of your mind and spiritual condition. You start with the process of creating things around you. You don't create actual objects. You put them there with your creative force as a being. Or in simpler terms, you could say you imagine them. You could call it a visualization exercise. It doesn't matter what way you understand it, as long as you can do it. There's also another category of exercise where you simply get your hands on objects in your environment. Does this sound like something you can handle? I'm sure you can. So let's go deeper into why and how this is done. When a conflict, upset, or overwhelm occurs in life, a mental mass forms. A mental mass is just a tiny amount of substance in your mind. Mental masses are a type of what we call an importance. A conflict is someone else enforcing the importance of something, whether it's their feelings, their opinions, beliefs, or something as solid as their fist coming towards you. This, plus your resistance to it, is what forms the mental mass, and that mental mass will thereafter affect the way you think and behave until it's been resolved. Dennis Stevens came up with a method of handling these masses called time breaking. It's the main technique used in TROM therapy. You take a mental mass from the past, whether an object, person, or event, and view it simultaneously with the present. By viewing the past and present simultaneously, you break the illusion of time, thus the term time breaking. The simplest form of time breaking is on level 2, where you view an object from the past next to an object in your present and compare the two. In comparing the object from your past to an object in the present, you de-intensify the effect of that past object on your mind. You diminish the mental mass, and that's all that's required. To give you an example, let's say a man was threatened with a knife sometime in the past. If he were to compare that knife to an object in the present and follow the systematic method for doing this at TROM level 2, noting differences and similarities between the knife from the past and a knife in the present, and did so until he could do this comfortably, he would not only relieve some past trauma, but would be more comfortable with knives he came across in his everyday life. That is a quick explanation of how TROM level 2 works. Please do not attempt this exercise knowing only what I just told you. Dennis Stevens found this exercise of comparing people and objects from the past to objects in the present an effective way to rid one's mind of a considerable amount of mental mass. But it posed a problem. Anyone who has a mind, that is to say, any human, has so many of these mental masses that he's not only gotten used to it, but actually believes he needs them. And because of that, when he performs the time-breaking exercises in TROM and rids himself of these mental masses, he feels imbalanced. Therefore, after losing some mental mass, he will attract to himself more harmful mental masses to fill that void, resulting in an unpleasant state of affairs. Dennis solved this problem with the exercise called repair of importances. As I mentioned before, mental masses are important to you, but your own mental creations are important too. So you make your own mental creations or substances to replace the mental masses you've lost as a result of doing TROM exercises. I guess he could have just as easily called the exercise replacement of importances. This exercise also has the benefit of orienting you to your present environment. After all, if you are going to view the past and the present at the same time, you need to be grounded in the present. The repair of importances exercise, also known as RI, is repeated all the way through the entire TROM program. You do it at the beginning of a session, during a session, at the end of a session, and between TROM exercise commands. Because you will do this exercise so often, it's of utmost importance to make sure that you can get results. If you can't get results by placing mental creations around you, then you get in physical contact with objects around you. That's the general idea. Let's get into specifics. I'll read now directly from the manuals so you'll know the exact commands for this exercise. Number 1, bring something into existence. Number 2, have another bring something into existence. The first command is run over and over until there is no more change. Then the second command is likewise run. Then the first command and then the second command again, until both produce no more change. The creations should be placed around you 360 degrees spherical. You don't have to do anything with the creations. The act of creation is sufficient. Quality of creation is far secondary to quantity of creation. Abundance is of the essence. Though Dennis doesn't specify exactly how this is done, many trommers will do something like create something in front of them, then behind them, to the left, right, above, and below them. Then the upper left, upper right, lower left, and lower right, and do the same thing behind them. This will cover all 360 degrees around you with creations. There are alternate commands. Number 1, create something. And number 2, have another create something. The word create is for many an emotionally charged word, and these people will find the preceding commands easier. They mean the same thing. The other alternative commands are: number 1, create an importance. Number 2, have another create an importance. Many will prefer this set and should use it. Try each one of these command sets and see which one you like best, and use it for your future RI sessions. It is not necessary to perceive one's creations. The certainty that one has created is sufficient. There is another class of RI called RI by perception. This is where the being repairs his scarcity of importances by increasing his contact with and reality of an existing importance in the present time physical universe. He can repair his scarcity of importances by physically contacting such a solid present time physical universe object. Grasping such an object with your hands and feeling its solidity, temperature, texture, and so on will repair importance. Many who have difficulty with the creative RI commands will be able to use RI by perception. Any being who can use the creative RI exercises will also be able to use RI by perception, but should use the creative version by preference. Any being who can only use RI by perception early on should from time to time during the levels have another go at the creative versions. Sooner or later, one will click, and thereafter should be used in preference to the RI by perception method. The only difference between the two methods is that in the creative version, that being is actually generating the importance. During the course of RI, you are going to feel some discomfort. Do not be alarmed if things like your eyes starts to water, you feel some uneasiness in your stomach, or get a tired feeling, or numerous other possible sensations. You may experience emotional changes as well. This means the exercise is working. The wrong thing to do is to stop the exercise when that happens. You must continue the exercise until all such feelings and sensations subside, and you can comfortably perform the exercise. The action of shifting your attention out of your past and onto the present, as well as replacing mental mass you've lost during one of the later TROM exercises, is not always a pleasant one, but it is necessary in order to restore your mental balance and orient yourself to your surroundings, so you are in the moment rather than stuck in your mind or in the past. Now, let's suppose I am trying TROM for the first time. I choose create something. I decide since I like cats, I create a cat in front of me, one behind me, above me, and so on. I go through this series several times. I start to yawn a bit. I continue, and I yawn more. I then continue until the yawning goes away, and when I am comfortable again, I switch to the second command, have another create something. Now you can handle this any way you want, just as long as you have the concept that someone else is creating whatever it is you are putting in front of you, behind you, and so on. You can just put an object mentally in front of you with the idea someone else put it there. But many times I like to actually visualize someone putting it there. For instance, I put a girl in front of me, blowing bubbles. I put her all around me, blowing bubbles. And during this, maybe my leg begins to shake. I continue until I stop shaking, and any other sensations, emotions, or reactions subside, and I am comfortable once more. I switch back to the first command. I yawn a few times. It goes away, and then I am fine. I go to the second command. After several cycles of placing things around me, nothing happens, so I go back to the first command, and nothing happens during that either. Since I have gone 2 in a row with no changes, I am finished with my RI session. Since I got results doing RI, namely the yawning and the leg shaking that came and went, I know the process works for me, and the next day I start on level 2. Now, if the exercise did not stimulate anything, and no mental, emotional, or physical reactions occurred at all, I could try a different command like bring something into existence, or create an importance. If I try all 3 and nothing happens, I try perceptual RI. I grab hold of, for example, a cup on my desk and hold it. I note how it looks. I feel its temperature, and so on. I may do this for a while. If I get a reaction, I continue holding it until it goes away. I can do this with other objects until I am comfortable doing the exercise and there are no more reactions. But if I try placing my hands on things and long periods of time pass and nothing happens, then I can conclude, after having tried both creative RI and perceptual RI, that I am going to need help. We have a video on our channel explaining what to do next. Before doing this or any TROM exercise, make sure you have had sufficient rest, you are not hungry or are in pain, and that you are not under the influence of alcohol or medications. You'll also need to have a place and time set aside where you can do this alone and undisturbed. The commands for these exercises are in the video description for your convenience. I recommend printing them and having them handy. If you need further clarification, you can visit bettertrom.com, leave a question in the comments section, or write an email to roger@bettertrom.com. Thanks for watching today. This has been a presentation of DIY Salvation. Don't just use your mind, resolve it.